Hi, everyone, and welcome to the last session of the Leaders of Tomorrow Gen Z Summit. My name is Grace, and I'm a senior at Los Altos High School, as well as one of the founding members of Nexus. I've always been interested in tech and computer science, and being a part of Nexus has given me the opportunity to explore the next big thing in tech, Web3. So in this interview, we'll be exploring the Metaverse as the next frontier with Global VP of Landfall, Charles Adkins. So for over 20 years, hi, Charles. So as a quick introduction, Charles has thrived as a trailblazing and innovative chief marketing officer and senior communications executive with international and domestic experience in the private and public sectors, both with Fortune 500 brands and venture-backed startups. In the 1990s, he founded a pioneering digital marketing agency called F5 Consulting Group with Yahoo as one of their first clients. Over the years, F5 has made substantial contributions to iconic brands like Uber, Disney, Nike, Google, and many others. More recently, he has been working side by side with progressive companies in the Web3 space, including Landfall, Polygon, Dapper Labs, and Filecoin. And now he's currently in the formation stage of a Web3-focused VC fund, which will be launching in 2023. So, Charles, thanks for joining us today. To start off, our first question is, so you've had over 20 years of experience in marketing at big companies, as well as founding F5. What got you into the business world, and how did you get to where you are now?
Thank you all for having me. One of the things I will say is it's just been a very interesting journey with technology changing so much. So actually what I went to school for was finance and economics. That's what I majored in, because I thought at a young age I wanted to be in investment banking, and it turns out that wasn't very fun for me. So I quickly got into tech, like you had mentioned. Yahoo had me selling some of their original banner ads in the mid 90s, which was interesting because I was only a teenager at the time. But it's then when in these tech cycles, they really allow autonomy for younger people to kind of do what they want to do. And ever since that point, I just got really obsessed with tech. I got into helping Uber with their fundraising for Groupon. Actually had a private food delivery company that I started myself that was acquired by Grubhub. So had a nice little exit of my own. And then really I just kept following, the transitions in web from Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. I originally found out about Bitcoin in 2014. I happened to go to one of my friend's house, and he had a basement, and his basement was incredibly hot. And we're like, why is it so hot down here? And he goes, oh, I learned about this thing on Reddit called Bitcoin mining. And he had all these machines running in his basement, and it was super hot. And so I learned from that. Then NFTs I got into in 2017 with CryptoKitties, which is where a lot of people started in that space. And then, I've just been to the point now, I've just been leading a lot of Fortune 500 executives, teaching them about tech, how it applies to their business, and really kind of demystifying it. I think tech has a lot of jargon, and I try to just say it in very plain, simple terms to help people understand. And that's where I'm at today.
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, it's really awesome hearing how you got started so early, probably around the same age as a lot of our attendees are. So what about being a founder and a leading marketer at companies excites you the most?
I think the interesting thing is you just get feedback right away. So it's really important early on in your career to take a lot of feedback. And when you're in the marketing space, obviously, if you're putting out most of the communications, whenever you get complaints, typically you're the first person to hear about it too. So, we take a lot of those complaints or a lot of that feedback, and then we give them that to the product team, and then they can make the product better and kind of iterate and make new versions. And so for me, it's just being really close to the end user, which is really exciting because you're not, back in a dungeon somewhere waiting to hear feedback. People will tell you very directly what they like and what they don't like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. So going more into your beginning experience, why did you start F5 in the 1990s, and what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah, I really started. I just feel like I got really lucky. I happened to be one of the OG internet users. So even as 11, 12, 13 years old, I was using the internet, and I just realized there was all of these little sub communities where people needed help, and I was able to figure out the technology. And I feel like that's kind of the same thing that's happening now in this space with like gaming and Web3. Like most of the founders that I talk to are in their early 20s, some of them even teens, and some of them, even younger, especially in the gaming space. I mean, I know people that are building stuff on Roblox that are, 9, 10, 11 years old. And I think that's just, for me, that's what's really exciting. And that's what got me into this space was in technology. It really relies heavily on your knowledge, and they don't really focus so heavily on what age you are. And that was always really exciting for me because I've always done things that at my younger age, I probably shouldn't have been doing, or according to society, but I was able to do it anyway, just because I learned the knowledge and I was able to prove myself. And that's why I started my company was, I figured out at about age 16, 17, that I can actually help a lot of these people, even though I'm young. So I might as well just start doing it now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really love that thing about tech that you were talking about. Like that, even in my own experience, there's like a lot of resources out there for me to learn about computer science. And since I was like 10, I just started coding. Thanks. Since the internet was still relatively new at that time, did you face any challenges being at the forefront of this new industry? And if so, how did you overcome them?
I think the biggest challenge, and it's interesting that it's kind of happening again, was just the internet speed. I mean, new technology, you're always dealing with things that are not mass adopted, and things only become better when they're mass adopted. So in the beginning, everybody complained a lot that you paid, your internet was connected to your phone line, and then you were charged by the hour. So you got these AOL discs in the mail, and you'd put them in your computer, and basically, at the very beginning, it was $15 per hour to be on the internet. And so as more users started to adopt that, as the infrastructure got better, that price came down and down. And that was a massive challenge because everybody was just saying negative things about the internet because they're like, well, it's so slow. It takes, 5 minutes to load a picture, and that's not fun. But now, I mean, we're seeing that in blockchain. Like a lot of these chains, they're slow, but to me, it just reminds me exactly how it was in the early internet. They're only slow because the infrastructure is not built and there's not enough users there to really help bolster the network. But it's funny how these cycles just happen over and over again. That was a huge challenge for us, was just getting people to be convinced of the internet in general. And then the one that used to always make me laugh was, especially now, in the very beginning, people would say, I will never put my credit card on the internet. I will never buy anything on the internet. And then here we have Amazon, probably the biggest company in the world. So apparently people thought it was a good idea after all.
Yeah, it's like, like crazy hearing about that. And then growing up with the internet and like putting your credit card on the internet, like being normal for me. And then, hearing that about like other people. Okay, so going into like more of what you're doing right now. So recently you've been working as the global VP of Landfall, a company that is bringing like businesses into the metaverse, if I'm correct. Could you explain, like for people in our audience who may not understand what the metaverse is, like could you explain what exactly the metaverse is and why people should care about it?
Yeah, so the metaverse, as kind of defined by myself and some leaders in the space, is really just the next version of the web. So imagine taking a website, making it as a three-dimensional activity and building it out, thinking with that fashion. It's not an actual platform like, we have Roblox, Fortnite, Decentraland, the Sandbox. Those are all platforms. And then you have interfaces, which are VR or like your mobile phone. Like those are ways that you can access it. And I think a lot of people get confused. They think, oh, the VR goggles is what the metaverse is. But really it's a way to seamlessly interact between your real life and virtual life and express yourself equally in both ways. So it's going to take a while to get to a full immersive metaverse where the same things that we can do in real life, we're able to replicate, completely in virtual worlds. But I think it's getting better and better. And I mean, video games really led the way for that. I mean, they're the original metaverse version to me. Is probably Roblox and Fortnite are probably the biggest two that I would say really got it right. And now we just need to make those a little bit more 3D, a little bit more immersive. And that's it's basically the 3D internet where you can have your own identity and express yourself however you want to express yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good explanation. I got a VR like a few years ago, and it's really amazing to see how it's like advanced over the years. And my dad recently got us a new one that like allows you to like create your own avatar and like interact with others. And I think that's really cool that we're getting into that now. So what about the metaverse like excites you the most and motivated you to like pursue a career in this industry?
I think just like most things in my past, I always want to be on the front edge of what technology is next, and this is where things are heading. I mean, we've already got 3 billion gamers worldwide, and let's just say half of them are considered casual mobile gamers, so we can exclude them. So let's say 1.5 billion that play video games that are immersive on platforms. That's a lot of people. But I think kind of to your point earlier, saying like you've not grown up in a time without the internet, or you've not grown up in a time where these things weren't normal. The next wave is actually people younger than everyone on this call, like the Gen Alpha, which is everyone born 2010 and after. And basically that entire population has never grown up without voice search, without AI at some point in their life, without very significant technology that the metaverse is built on. And that age segment by the year 2025 is actually 2 billion people. It's the largest age segment in the history of the world. So as this technology improves and you want to make sure that age group of people are getting what they want, and the things that they want are really only capable of happening in a metaverse environment where, like you said, you can have an avatar and customize the way that you look and have a digital self-expression of yourself. And that doesn't always happen in every video game. That doesn't even happen in real life for a lot of people. They actually feel more like themselves in virtual worlds than they do trying to navigate just the real world, because people don't always understand them. So for me, it's just making sure people have that space where they can create and be whoever they want, do it safely, and like find the community that makes them the happiest. And I think that's what we're trying to build, and hopefully we're doing it the right way. I mean, there's always going to be the big companies out there that might not do it the right way, but we'll see what happens. I think we'll be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think now is really important to have that kind of technology for everyone to interact with each other, especially like with the pandemic and everything going virtual. Yeah, I think it's really good to have this kind of space. Can you speak a little bit more about your role and the work that you do at Landfall?
Yeah, so we mainly build in Web3 open metaverses. So even though we have the capability, and so just the difference really quick between that, like a Web2 centralized platform would be like Roblox, Minecraft, and all that. It's actually owned by a single entity, like Fortnite, like Epic owns them. We build in Sandbox and Decentraland, which the way that you typically take ownership in there is you're able to purchase virtual land with Ethereum. You're able to build your own type of business in there. Then you can sell NFTs. You can, charge people to come into your clubhouse or whatever you want to do, and you actually get the money from it because you're the owner. So we've been doing that for businesses. Like we built a big Sandbox activation for MasterCard, and it was for their Pride Month activation. So we did a big build for them, and people were able to go in there and buy different costumes and do really fun stuff. And really right now it's been a way for companies to test out what it's like having other users own their stuff, because big companies are not used to that. They're used to getting all the money. So when you're allowing other people to kind of share in that profitability, that's a little bit of a learning curve. But we take a lot of major brands, we build out 3D activations for them in Sandbox, Decentraland, and a few others. And we just hope to get people there and have them buy the NFTs and have a good time and interact with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I'm excited to be a part of this in the future. Sounds
Oh,
amazing.
it'll be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, what has been your like biggest or your like favorite project so far?
The MasterCard one's been really fun. That was a really good one. That's been great. I will say we've also done one for the NFT project World of Women. We just launched the World of Women Tower project in the sandbox. That was big. We're helping out with some stuff with Atari. Probably my favorite project going back, though, not really Web3 related, so you can kind of throw it out the window. But when I was at Nike, I used to handle a lot of the marketing for all the Kobe Bryant collection. So that was like kind of near and dear to me. So launching a lot of the Kobe shoes was really fun at the time, even though that's not very Web3. It was still fun.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, so now I also heard that you're currently in like the formation stage of a Web3 focused VC fund, which will be launching in 2023. Could you tell us a little bit about this initiative?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of founders out there, like traditional VC funds, especially ones focused on crypto and Web3, they have a very short life cycle. So when they invest in a company, they typically want to see their money come back, or they want to see some kind of an exit within 5 years. That's just how kind of the crypto markets are. They're really fast. And so the fund that I'm building is actually for a 10-year fund. And it's really to give founders that time, what can be built over a 10-year period if someone actually sticks with you and helps you out and teaches you how to build something over 10 years. I think amazing things can be built. And most of the things that we need right now are really hard things. Like it's really easy to build an NFT like profile picture. Like that's really not hard. So that's not really the kind of stuff I would want to invest in. It's more the infrastructure and the backbone of what creates the blockchain technology, the like processors and computing power that it takes to render 3D. Like in your VR headsets, you can imagine a time where if 10 million, 20 million, 50 million people have these, and they're all trying to interact with each other at the same time, there's really not enough computing power to render those properly for that many people. So just having that actually work. Quantum computing is a real big area, which I'd be looking into, only because that comes along with protecting your privacy a lot. So if IBM stays on track to release the quantum computer that they have, hopefully they want to launch within the next 5 years. Basically, any typewritten password will be completely useless. It's been able to crack any password in less than 5 minutes. And so that's when you need to have either like fingerprint scan for everything, Face ID for everything, or retina scan for everything. Because typing a password is just not going to cut it 5 years from now. So just really deeper technologies they're not exciting and they're not really fun, but they're things that I think the broader world will actually need. It's just not really cool on the outside. It doesn't look very cool.
Yeah, I actually think that is really cool and like really important for our world and all these advances that are happening. So like with all of your different roles and like this new initiative, what does an average workday look like for you?
Yeah, so for me, most of the people that I manage right now are companies based in London. So I typically wake up about 4 a.m. To make sure that, just to make sure that I can get on some calls where all of our team is in London. I basically do those from 4 a.m. to about 10 a.m. And then I take a break. I'll have my coffee, eat breakfast, and then I'll start my US based calls, usually like 10:30 to about 3. And then I'll try to catch up again on emails from 3 to 6. It's just a lot of, managing team project work. So as we're doing these builds, just making sure that we're following our timelines. Timelines and budgets is a big deal. Coming up with a strategy on how the tech can work. And then in the sandbox, you're actually able to build mini games. So coming up with a lot of the game strategy behind, what would be fun for people to actually do while they're in the game. We've built fighting games, bowling games, lasso, we've done all kinds of different games in there. It's typically pretty fun. It's just a lot of hours. That's the thing. It's, I'm usually 4 a.m. to about 6 or 7 p.m. Yeah, 5 or 6 days a week usually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It doesn't have to be like that, but I kind of choose it to be that way right now only because it's really exciting and I don't want to miss the front wave of what's going on. I think there's just a big opportunity in the space. And so I really get that FOMO and I feel like I'm going to miss something if if I'm not awake to watch it, I feel like I'm going to miss something.
Yeah, I feel like tech is that industry that it keeps moving. You just got to keep up. So yeah, it's really cool that you're like really passionate and devoted to that. Right. Okay, so looking into the future, where do you see the metaverse's role in the world in like the next 10 years?
I think a lot of it is, we're going to have a lot of consumer applications where it works for the general population, like all of us here. But I think right now, like the company NVIDIA probably has the best use case right now, and they have something called the Omniverse, which they go in and they create a digital twin of like a giant factory. So let's say they do a 3D scan of the Volkswagen factory and they recreate that in like 3D, like in a metaverse. Well, then what they can do once they have that is they can run like a 50-year simulation or 100-year simulation, like on ultra speed, just to see like what machines might break down, like what employees are not like in the right spot. And so it seems very like kind of boring and enterprise level, like metaverse, like none of us are going to be able to see them, but it saves companies hundreds of millions of dollars by being able to run future simulations of like a digital twin. And then I think just for us, I think before we get full immersive VR, there's going to be a lot more AR applications come out. I mean, Pokemon Go obviously like killed it with that. Like that was addicting for everybody. But now like we have like, even because we build some of that stuff too. Like we have movie theaters like reaching out to us who want to build that stuff to make stuff like float around the theater while the movie's playing. They want like there's actually giant shopping mall company. They want to have stuff all around, like where if you collect different things, you get like, free stuff at some of their stores. And so the AR thing is becoming really probably more important in the next 2 years. And then I would say VR probably like 2025 and later. But I mean, really, it's just an extension of self-expression, really. I mean, everybody that's a lot younger than me, like they don't see any difference between like Roblox or like real life. I mean, you give like an 8-year-old like $100 in Robux, like they think it's the best thing in the world.
Yeah, that's really funny. So you talked a lot about like how the metaverse will impact the way businesses will interact with their customers. I was wondering like how do you see the metaverse impacting the way that people interact with each other?
Yeah, I think that's going to be a really interesting thing to do because it really breaks down borders when you want to build a community. I mean, we kind of have that with like the internet in general and social media. We can talk to anybody wherever they are. But the more immersive these experiences get, I think it's really going to help people feel more connected to people that are further away from them. So I think you're really going to see like relationships in the metaverse. You're going to see people, that have not seen relatives for a long time be able to like view them in the metaverse, and it's going to feel different than just writing them on Facebook. Like it's just a way. I think it's really going to help the general population connect with people that are far away, which I think will actually help with work too, because if we're all going to do remote work, it can really help you connect with your team and feel like you're kind of in the same space, even though, it's a little bit different, but it's a lot better than just doing it on like Facebook or Instagram or something like that.
Cool. So as the metaverse is becoming more prominent, how should members of Gen Z, like the attendees of today's summit, prepare for a world where the metaverse has become like this big thing?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking to get into it as like an occupation or something you want to do in the future, just learning the tools to actually build like the assets inside of it. So learning like the voxel editors, learning how to build things in Unity or Unreal Engine, like any of the gaming engines, is going to be a big deal. Any 3D artwork you can do is going to be huge. It's going to be a really big deal. I mean, there's people right now that even just specialize in building. Like, you don't have to do 3D. It's so funny. You don't have to do like full 3D builds of like architectured buildings and stuff. I actually just saw Epic Games. They just hired somebody. All he does, he specifically makes swords for games. That's it. So all he does is do all 3D artwork for every sword in every Epic game, and that's it. So it can be like something as simple as that. Like, we have somebody on our team, all he does is do trees and bushes and flowers. That's it, because he's just so good at it. So, I mean, don't be scared to have like a real specialty in something that you love, and just learn how to either be in games, build like on the gaming engines. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of where the future is going. Is that's a major skill set that's going to, I mean, it's going to be one of the biggest jobs out there, is learning how to do 3D modeling and game design.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really great advice. All right. Yeah, so one topic I wanted to address is that, like, since the metaverse is still a new idea and, like, yeah, pretty far away from being ready for consumer use, and also, like, many people believe that the metaverse is, like, trying to replace the real world. So, like, how would you address these concerns?
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. I think people end up watching that movie, Ready Player One, and they kind of feel like, oh, we're all going to be hanging out in our house, like, with these goggles on and these suits on. We're never going to be able to talk to each other in real life. But I mean, the reality is, like, we never really look at the metaverse as taking over real life, but we do see it very much as an extension of taking your real life into a virtual world. So, like, eventually when we have self-driving cars, I mean, we fully anticipate when self-driving cars are around that the windshield can be fully VR, and you can be doing anything you want to do, sitting in your car, having a meeting with your coworkers while it drives itself, somewhere else. Having your identity look similar to how you are in the real world into the metaverse. I don't think it's ever going to get to the point where there's a lot of things that you just simply can't do in the metaverse. Like, I've seen, Pizza Hut and Pepsi and some of the other ones try that. But, if you can just text and order a pizza, like, there's no reason you're going to sign on to the sandbox, like, open up your avatar, run like to a different location, and go to like a virtual ordering portal. Like, there's some things that are just, they're already so easy that the metaverse is not going to take it over. I think it's mainly going to be used to get closer to friends, play games, and build bigger communities. I don't think it's going to take over any day today. Like, you're not going to order food there. You're not going to go to the grocery store. It's just not going to be one of those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. All right, yeah. So, speaking from your experience, in what ways is the metaverse, the upcoming of the metaverse, similar or different to the internet being a new thing in the 1990s?
I think, like, kind of what I talked about earlier is it's really, we just need the actual underlying technology to catch up with the application layer. So everybody's building a lot of cool games and cool worlds and all that fun stuff, but the blockchains are still slow. There's not a lot of users there yet. And it's, once we do get a lot of users there, it might be a little bit slow for a while. Like, for example, like in the sandbox. So we've had somebody come to us and they wanted to build like a concert in the sandbox. But in reality, like, in your visual field, you can only see about 15 to 20 people at a time. So you can't really have a giant concert. You can have like a small book club or something like that. Like, you can't, that kind of technology just isn't quite there yet when you're doing it on the blockchain. But that was the same thing with like online gaming when it first started, happening. When the internet came out, you could only have 2 players in a game at a time. It was really slow. There was like lag from when you pushed a button to when your weapons would actually fire. Like, it's just infrastructure problems. That's the main thing that I see is exactly the same. And it happens every time. Everybody gets excited, which we had a big excitement in 2021 about NFTs and the metaverse, and then the market kind of went down. And same thing happened in the internet. But I mean, in the lowest internet market, that's when Amazon and Google were created. That's when Oracle was known as the most valuable company on earth at the time, right after the internet crashed. So I don't really worry about it. I do think probably this next year it's going to run into some glitches and some problems, and people are going to say negative things. But I guess that's a good thing about being old is like I've heard it all before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even with social media, it took me. So I used to work trying to get people to get social media accounts, and it took me 4 years to convince Macy's department store to make an Instagram, and like they just thought it was the dumbest thing ever. And like I think the same thing's going to happen with the metaverse. Like I'll just keep hearing people say no, but eventually they'll just say yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think it's really important to be patient for these kinds of like big projects to work out. All right, so this is the last question before we get into the live Q&A session. What advice do you have for younger people who are interested in getting into the metaverse?
I think you just nailed it, and that's to be patient. Because if you jump in right now, and you might get frustrated trying to build a lot of like the cooler looking things, it's very difficult right now because the tools are pretty basic, and blockchains are pretty difficult to develop on, depending on what coding languages you know. It can be tough at first. So I would just say be patient and just be very curious and open to new ideas, because that's usually what always happens. What you assume will happen almost never does. And so just ask all the questions in the world and take good feedback and hang in there for at least 3 years, probably 5 years before it gets really, really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is really good advice. Okay, so the first question from our audience is, so Face ID and retina scans are seen by many of us as too invasive. So how are you addressing ethics issues around being a champion of like such a thought?
Yeah, I think that comes along with people that are building technology like a self-sovereign identity. So basically what you will do is it'll actually be you taking control of your own identity instead of being issued government IDs and government, different like platforms like that, like the DMV and all these other things. There's technology out there now where basically you can submit your information, you get verified on each device, and then as long as you're on that device, it does a scan. The information doesn't go anywhere else. It stays within your own machine, and it just verifies that you're the one utilizing it, and then it allows you to go on to every platform. So I definitely feel for that concern too, and I think it's when you really start digging into it, there's already a lot of things out there in the world that are scanning and doing Face ID that like we don't even really know about. I mean, every time you walk into an airport, your face scanned. So I mean, it's everywhere. It's just utilizing where you're able to have control of your own identity is a big deal, and I think that's what Web3 really helps out with doing. I mean, so the platforms like Facebook, Instagram, for example, the reason they're free, and I know you guys all know this, it's free because they can show you advertising based on using your data. Well, in the future, that's where the Web3 layer and earning crypto tokens is really helpful, because we could go on to a Web3 version of a social platform. You could have a free experience which uses your data and shows you ads, and then you could actually earn for sharing that data, or you could just choose to not earn any money and not share your information. So the choice is kind of left up to you whether you want to do that or not. And I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Brave browser. So Brave is a browser that's very similar to Chrome, and they already do this. If you want to share your data, you get paid what's called basic attention tokens, which is it's a listed cryptocurrency. And if you choose not to share your data, you can still use the browser, you just don't earn any money for it. So it's just a way, I think a lot more platforms are going to be going that way, where you're going to be able to be in control of your own information, your own scans, even like speaking of like retina, fingerprints, etc., like even your own health records, because right now it's even difficult to get your own health records. So I think, it's a lot more power is going to be in the hands of the people instead of major companies.
Yeah, that's great. So there is another question. Do you do computer programming currently in your job, or like have you ever?
I have a long time ago. I don't currently, because most everybody right now uses like Solidity, Cadence, Rust, a lot of languages that I don't know how to code in. So nope, don't know don't know any of those. I was the old school HTML guy, like HTML, used to do Java, CSS, like simple stuff compared to what people are doing today.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so what has been your favorite job position so far?
Oh, wow. I don't know. I mean, there's been a lot. I always kind of like where I'm at in the moment. Like, I like right now the most. I mean, it's what I get to focus on every day. I just try to focus on enjoying what I do, each day. So this has been really fun. I will say, like, Nike was really fun. That was great. Polygon was interesting. It was a little overwhelming. So that, like, working there, that's such a popular. That's like kind of the Web3 version of working at Google. Everyone's going to call you and think you can do them a favor, and like it's just very overwhelming. Like, can you get me on the platform? Can you build this for me? So that was pretty tough to do.
All right, cool. So next question. What are your favorite companies working in the metaverse right now?
I mean, obviously, I like my own. Landfall is great. I would say, as far as like the platforms go, and again, like I think of the metaverse as it doesn't necessarily have to be Web3 based. I will say my favorite Web3 platforms are probably Sandbox, even though it's still in alpha. Decentraland is fun. I think the one that's going to shake up the most in the upcoming future is going to be Fortnite again, because I know they're changing their creator platform where they're going to actually share a lot more of the money with the creators. That one's going to be big when they make that shift. I think a lot of creators are going to go and start building things in Fortnite again because they can make a lot more money. Most of the brands, like most of the big companies that I talk to right now, they really want to do stuff in Roblox. That's where the big brands want to be. So Roblox builders have been doing really well as far as, making a living. Those are great. I think there's a lot coming out in the future that, they have those full immersive 3D. They use Unreal Engine, which is basically what they built The Mandalorian, and like it's visually incredible. It just takes a lot of computer power to run. It'd be very hard to just run a system like that on a basic laptop. Like you need like a pretty powerful system to run that.
Yeah, that all sounds really awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to see like all that like come out. And yeah. All right. So what was the best advice you received as an entrepreneur?
Oh man, I think I just wrote something about this on LinkedIn recently. The best advice I got was, this isn't your practice life. What are you waiting for? And I think a lot of people just kind of, I don't know if they wait around and they think something's coming next, or like, it was just because I was at a period in my life where I was just like, oh, well, if I just wait a little bit, like it'll get better, or I'll just save up a little more money and then I'll do this thing. And I was always like just scared to just do it. And this person told me, this isn't your practice life. Like, I don't know what you're waiting for. Like, there's nothing coming next, so you might as well just do it now. And I always think about that a lot. And it's just, yeah, it's funny. Mm-hmm. It's funny who gave me that advice too, because he's kind of known as like a social media like goofball. So it's Ben. I don't know if you guys know him, Ben Baller, Ben Yang. He's like super fun, big sneakerhead guy. Like collects all the Murakami stuff, but not a guy I would expect to get great advice from. But it was probably the best advice I ever got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. It's like simple, but it's like, yeah, such like a huge piece of advice. Yeah, kind of going off of that. Yeah, who are your role models? Like people you look up to?
Yeah, that's pretty tough. I don't know, really. I mean, I look up to a lot of like the old school like tech guys, the old school venture capital guys. It's just really interesting to think back on that time when, like, if you had a really good idea, there was nobody that was going to give you money to build it until somebody created venture capital, which was like a whole new like sector of investing, where people could take like really high risk and help people build things. And I mean, I always think even the first venture capitalist, I think, was JP Morgan, who gave money to Thomas Edison and basically helped him bring lights to cities. I mean, at that time, like Thomas Edison ran out of money. There was no cities that had lights in them at all. And he basically had the first like venture capital check like written to him. Like, I don't even know if we'd have electricity if we didn't have like the first venture capital investment. So it's just people that are willing to do bold things and take risks. I mean, not crazy stupid things, but just calculated risks where, you know, you could really change the world. And there's not very many people out there that do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are great role models to have. All right, so yeah, our last question is, what is one piece of advice you would give to the younger generation?
I think the patience is a big one, but always be busy as well. Like, I know there's a lot of social media people out there, like the influencers that are always like, you know, be patient and don't do anything. Like, just wait and see what happens. But like, that doesn't really work. And you want to start, I would say just make as many mistakes as you can and fail as quickly as you can, because it's the only way you're going to learn a lot of stuff. I mean, books can get you pretty far, but just really failing and testing over and over again is what it just cuts years off of your progress, because the faster you can like figure it out, I mean, the more ahead of all of your peers you're going to be. Because if everybody buys the same book and reads it and then you try to go implement it, like only the people that implement it are going to really figure out what happens. And I would just say go and test. It's like the first, so like back when Netflix first started, like they originally started doing by shipping DVDs. And so the two founders of Netflix at the time, they were sitting around and they're like, well, we don't even know if this is going to work. So the dude was like, well, he goes, let's go to the post office and try to mail a CD. And if we can mail it for less than 50 cents, then we have a business. So they mailed it and it was like 35 cents or something. They said, perfect, we have a business. But if they would have just sat around and they're like, well, I wonder if it'll happen. I wonder if I can do it. Like, they just grabbed a CD, went to the post office, mailed it, figured out it would work. And they were like, all right, so now we have Netflix.
Well, yeah, I really like that. Yeah, I think that's really what sets like entrepreneurs apart from everyone else, is that they actually go out in the world and like try to do something. All right.
Yeah, don't be scared of getting feedback. Like, people are always going to have something bad to say. Like, especially when you're working in technology and like future tech, like people always think it's crazy. I mean, I remember like so here's a good example. I wasn't around during this time myself, but when they first invented cell phones in 1983, like nobody was worried about the technology working or not. The big like scandal of the time was, who's going to walk around and talk on a phone in public? Because it was so frowned upon to have a conversation in public that's the reason they thought cell phones would never work. It had nothing to do with the technology. So once they got over that fear, they were like, oh yeah, people don't care. They'll talk on the phone anywhere. So then they finally launched cell phones.
Wow, cool. All right, so yeah, thank you so much, Charles, for joining us today and sharing like about your experiences with marketing and the metaverse. I learned so much today, and I'm sure that all of the attendees did as well. So everyone. Go ahead.
I would say thank you for having me. It was really fun to be here with you guys.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So everyone, that concludes our last session of the Leaders of Tomorrow Gen Z Summit. Again, I'd like to thank all of the speakers who took the time to speak with us today, and also to all of our attendees. The rest of the Nexus team and I really appreciate you guys for coming, and we hope you enjoyed hearing from all of our speakers about the Web3 industry and learned something new. Lastly, I'd like to thank all of our sponsors, Nexus, Stack, and iUnite Media. And if you're interested in diving deeper into the world of Web3, join the Nexus Team Web3 community at teamnexus.xyz to get notified of future events like today's summit and meet other like-minded teams in our community Discord. All right, so thanks for coming to the Leaders of Tomorrow Gen Z Summit, and I hope to see you at our next event. Bye, everyone.